The city lies in ashes, a testament to the battle's fury. In the ruins of a throne room, a mighty general kneels, defeated. This is Maddago, a commander from the Demon Lord's own army. He looks up at the lone figure who brought him to his knees. The general struggles to process his own failure. To be bested by a mere human? Talk about a blow to the ego. He roars in defiance, refusing to accept this humiliating end. But the hero stands ready, his expression cold and unyielding. With one final fiery lunge, he ends the general's desperate struggle. The swordsman makes a simple, undeniable declaration of his victory. The general's body is shredded by a storm of crimson slashes. Our hero lands, his final attack a blur of deadly precision. He looks on, his gaze as sharp and unforgiving as his blade. This world's tragedy began when a single demon lord descended. He laid waste to kingdoms and fed on the despair of the masses. To rule his new domain, he placed his officers throughout the lands. For 100 long years, this brutal reign continued. Humanity fought back, clinging desperately to a sliver of hope. But they couldn't even beat the mid-bosses, let alone the demon lord himself. That is, until one warrior finally appeared to change the game. Our story shifts to a quiet corner of the world, the village of Okuna. Here, news of a hero's return echoes through the peaceful streets. Inside a cozy home, a young woman waits patiently by the window. Her head turns, a flicker of hope in her eyes as she hears the commotion. The villagers celebrate their champion, recounting tales of his legendary battle. And there he is, the warrior Roland, looking a bit overwhelmed by the hero's welcome. But one voice cuts through the crowd, calling his name. The hardened warrior's face softens into a warm, genuine smile. He's greeted by Felicia, his childhood friend, who never doubted him for a second. Sensing the mood, the villagers give them some space because even heroes need a moment. Felicia gently questions his early return from the royal capital. He grins, explaining he'd just be pestered to join the knights. He declares his intention to stay, much to the villagers' disbelief. He recalls leaving the rest of the cleanup to a knight named Salana. A young boy appears, giving Roland a stern warning about his sister. The kid seems to be laying down the law for his big sister's sake. Back in the capital, he confides in Salana about the lingering threat. She asks if he plans to make her sister worry until the world is saved. She reassures him, promising to hold the line while he's away. And with a grin, she gives him the classic future brother-in-law talk. Roland is left completely flustered by Salana's forwardness. Back in the village, he turns his attention to Felicia, saying he has a gift. The simple statement seems to short-circuit her brain entirely. He sheepishly tells her not to look so shocked by the idea. Her surprise quickly melts into a bright, curious smile. He kneels down, presenting a small, unassuming box. Inside, a brilliant ring catches the light, leaving her breathless. With a steady gaze, Roland asks her to be his wife. He acknowledges that peace is far from won in these uncertain times. But still, he looks up, determined to secure this one piece of happiness. He continues his proposal, saying he wants to be the one to protect her, a vow that brings tears streaming down her face. He recalls their shared past, 2 orphans who had only each other. In a world ravaged by demons, Felicia was a beacon of unwavering hope. He felt she was far too good for a man whose only skill was the sword. So he made a silent promise to keep her safe, no matter the cost. And that is a promise he intends to keep, with every fiber of his being. A simple gold ring now rests on his finger, a symbol of his new life. But marriage doesn't mean the fight is over, it just gives him more to lose. So he trains relentlessly, honing his blade to defend the future he's just secured. Felicia finds him training, gently suggesting he take a night off. But Roland is driven, convinced he must be strong enough to protect his new happiness. His relentless drive seems to only deepen her concern. She calls out to him, asking for a single solemn promise. She asks him to promise that he will live longer than she will. She knows his nature all too well, his instinct to sacrifice himself for her. Her hope for the future, she explains, is entirely pinned on him. But a world without him is a fate she refuses to accept, and honestly, that smile is terrifying. Her words finally get through, and he agrees not to die so carelessly. She seems pleased, but her follow-up question hints at a much deeper meaning. He brushes off her worries, insisting he needs to train even harder now. But Felicia seems a bit surprised by his plan to train on their wedding night. She gently reminds him that they are, officially married now. The world's strongest swordsman finally gets the hint and changes his tune. She can't help but smile at his clumsy side, much to his embarrassment. The two stand together in the quiet of the night. a moment of peace earned. Roland looks up, a soft smile on his face, finally content. But that contentment is instantly shattered by a wave of pure dread. The sky bleeds red as an immense malevolent energy fills the air. A new enemy appears, and he knows exactly who defeated General Maddago. Roland looks up in horror as a new demon descends from the sky. He feels an overwhelming pressure, far beyond any officer he's ever faced. Without a moment's hesitation, Roland draws his blade. He lunges forward, determined to end this threat before it can begin. But his attack stops dead in its tracks, his body frozen in place. He can't move a muscle, held captive by an invisible, crushing force. And just like that, the world's strongest swordsman becomes a welcome mat. The creature acknowledges his skill, now understanding how Maddago fell. But it declares that for the sake of its own dignity, it cannot let him live. Roland's blood runs cold as he realizes who he's facing, the Demon Lord himself. The Demon Lord admits he came to kill Roland, but now has a better idea. He reveals their true goal isn't death, but to feast on the despair of humanity. He summons a swirling mass of dark energy, identifying it as an ancient curse, a curse that turns any human it touches into a ravenous monster. A cruel, knowing smile spreads across the Demon Lord's face. He then launches the orb of corruption directly at the unsuspecting village. Roland is suddenly freed, the Demon Lord mockingly telling him to run. He promises that everything Roland holds precious will be devoured before his eyes. The hero's face contorts in pure terror as the horrifying plan becomes clear. He sprints with everything he has, screaming Felicia's name into the night. He pushes himself past his limits, every muscle screaming in protest. The vow he made to protect her is the only thought in his mind. He leaps through the air, trying to intercept the orb of dark magic. But a calm voice calls his name from the doorway of their home. He can only stare, his heart pounding with a terrible premonition. She looks at him, a single word of warning on her lips. With a sad smile, she releases him from his promise to outlive her. His world shatters, the hero's mind unable to comprehend her meaning. Then, the curse takes hold, twisting her into an unrecognizable creature. All he can do is watch in horror, his denial a silent, broken plea. His mind flashes with memories of her smile, now twisted into a cruel mockery. He can only scream her name, a raw, desperate cry into the night. The hero's sanity shatters, his face a mask of pure, undiluted agony. The woman he loved is gone, replaced by a cold, armored monstrosity. Her once gentle eyes now glow with an eerie, predatory light. She towers over him, her lower half a gaping maw of razor-sharp teeth. Her hands have become lethal claws, crackling with a sinister energy. The creature that was once Felicia raises its hand to strike him down. Roland remains motionless, completely paralyzed by the horrifying sight. But his hand tightens on his sword, his warrior instincts finally kicking in. Roland meets her attack head-on, his blade clashing with her monstrous power. He struggles to hold back the overwhelming force of the blast. He screams her name, desperately trying to reach the woman inside the monster. But his sword is caught in the creature's maw, nearly shattering his defense. The monster that was once Felicia lunges again, relentless and savage. He's forced back, realizing that her consciousness is completely gone. She looks down on him with a predator's grin, devoid of any recognition. So he changes tactics, deciding to evade her attacks and wear her down. He shouts promises of a future, convinced he can find a way to break the curse. He vows to protect her no matter what, until he can bring her back. Roland parries with a brilliant flash of light, deflecting the monstrous blow. The creature that was once Felicia is sent skidding back from the impact. He reaffirms his vow, a promise made to the woman trapped inside the beast. But the monster simply responds with another savage, sweeping attack. From above, the Demon Lord watches the tragic dance with amusement. He notes Roland's skill, managing to survive without actually harming his opponent. He then taunts the hero, asking if he truly believes the curse can be broken. Roland roars back, promising to deal with the Demon Lord after he saves Felicia. Unfortunately, his possessed wife isn't waiting for the conversation to end. The Demon Lord just smirks, preparing another spell to make things worse. The Demon Lord notes that if Roland protects her, this whole situation ends. And if that happens, he won't get to see the hero's ultimate despair. So with a flick of his wrist, he binds Roland in magical chains. The monster that was Felicia lunges, taking full advantage of the opening. Roland's sword is sent spinning from his now powerless grip. The blow connects, sending the world's strongest swordsman flying. The Demon Lord smirks, declaring that things are finally getting interesting. Roland screams in agony, realizing his entire right arm is just gone. Well, that's certainly going to make deflecting attacks a lot harder. But even with one arm, he raises his sword, his eyes burning with defiance. He charges forward, a one-armed whirlwind of pure, unadulterated rage. But the monster that was Felicia meets his charge with a devastating blast. Roland is sent flying, crashing into a wall with bone-shattering force. He's battered and broken, bloodied but somehow still conscious. His vision blurs as he begins to accept that this might be his end. The creature winds up for the final blow, ready to finish him for good. As darkness closes in, his last thoughts are a plea for Felicia to stay. A memory of her tearful smile reminds him of the promise he made to her. His eyes snap open, refusing to die and leave her alone in this nightmare. He fights his fading consciousness, knowing his time to save her is running out. He's on his last legs, using his one arm to hold back the inevitable. A memory of her smile reminds him of the promise he has to keep. With a final surge of adrenaline, he throws himself into one last attack. He roars his defiance, vowing that he will never leave her alone. His blade finally finds its mark, slicing through the monster's side. He grits his teeth, trying to push the sword deeper into the beast. But he knows it's a shallow wound, a pathetic strike with only one arm. The creature that was Felicia glares back, her rage completely inhuman. She winds up her own attack, ready to end this little struggle. Her claws tear through his chest, a brutal end to his desperate gamble. Roland screams in agony, blood spraying from the fatal wound in his chest. He's lifted effortlessly into the air, dangling from the monster's glowing claws. The creature that was Felicia holds him by the head, a trophy of her hunt. Her face is a mask of pure, predatory glee, the woman he knew long gone. She pulls him into a twisted embrace, his own sword pressed against him. But through the blood and pain, Roland's eyes still burn with defiance. The monster raises her hand, ready to deliver another torturous blow. But then, her hand closes over his on the hilt of his own sword. He grits his teeth, refusing to let her use his blade to end him. With a final, desperate roar, he unleashes one last golden arc of light. The golden light fades, leaving Roland standing over the bisected monster. The demon lord applauds his ruthlessness, praising him for killing his own wife. But Roland collapses, his body and spirit finally giving out. He reaches for a future that has been stolen from him. The demon lord smirks, noting that his resolve came far too late. With a final declaration of victory, the villain leaves him to bleed out. But then, his eyes open again, filled with a cold, unfamiliar light. He looks around, completely bewildered by his new surroundings. Standing in a vast, empty void, he wonders if this is the afterlife. He looks over his shoulder, his missing right arm a grim reminder of his failure. He recalls her final words, a final, heartbreaking command. She was telling him to live, even if it meant striking her down. But he clenches his fist, knowing he failed that promise too. He died right after her, leaving him to question if any of it mattered. He's consumed by guilt, believing Felicia deserved a happier fate. But a gentle voice corrects him, insisting that she was happy. He looks up to see a radiant, winged figure descending before him. She introduces herself as the angel Myosotis. So not the afterlife, just a different kind of weird. Roland is understandably confused, but she cuts him off, saying there's no time. She reassures him that Felicia was truly happy, even if she can't explain why. Myosotis tells him that he too is a kind person at heart, but she quickly clarifies that she is not, given what she's about to ask. She offers him a second chance at life, and his rage ignites, vowing to kill the demon lord. The angel's gaze is steady, her expression unreadable. A brilliant golden light erupts as she begins to cast a powerful spell. Suddenly, Roland finds himself falling through a strange, gridded space. The void around him solidifies into countless glowing cubes. He plummets through the sky, a bit confused by this very blocky reincarnation process. She promises that once his mission is complete, his own wish will be granted. But she offers an apology first, hinting that this second chance comes with a price. He plummets through the storm, wondering if the demon lord is truly gone. His eyes snap open, the rain washing over his face as he returns to the world. The angel's voice echoes, explaining his world-class swordsmanship is lost forever. But instead of his arm, she offers him something different. He awakens in the rain, lying next to Felicia's lifeless body. He slowly sits up, the grim reality of his failure washing over him. But his right arm is no longer gone. It's been replaced by a monstrous limb. He's meant to fight with this, a constant, cruel reminder of her fate. He pulls her close, a silent, heartbreaking embrace in the pouring rain. His face contorts in agony, a hero reborn into a brand new nightmare. He lets out a primal scream, a sound of pure, soul-crushing loss. As the demon lord retreats, Roland is left alone with the ruins of his life. The rain washes over the grotesque remains of the woman he loved. Sometime later, he stands before a simple grave, a silent monument to his failure. He clutches her ring, the last piece of a future that was stolen from him. He mourns alone, the weight of his grief a shadow that never leaves. He dons a new look, hiding his eyes but not the monstrous arm on his shoulder. He apologizes to her memory, forced to use this cursed limb to fight. But his quiet moment of reflection is suddenly interrupted. Looks like the local wildlife is a bit more aggressive than he remembers. He recognizes the tattered clothes on the beast, a horrifying realization dawning. He wonders if the entire village suffered the same terrible fate as Felicia. But he can't afford to die here, not with his mission just beginning. He steels himself, apologizing to the villager he's about to strike down. But as he swings, his cursed arm spasms, rejecting the blade entirely. The weapon clatters uselessly to the ground, leaving him defenseless. He stares in disbelief, unable to even get a proper grip on his sword. The angel's words echo in his mind, a warning he didn't understand until now. He finally grasps the true, terrible cost of his second chance. And with that revelation, the pack of monsters closes in for the kill. With his sword useless, Roland decides he has no choice but to fight barehanded. He throws a punch, unleashing a torrent of destructive crimson energy. The monster is instantly obliterated, a gaping hole blown clean through its chest. Roland stares at his arm, stunned by the overwhelming power he just unleashed. But there's no time to process as another beast lunges for his throat. He meets its charge head-on, stopping the creature's jaws with his bare hand. The sheer brutality of the act leaves him wide-eyed and shaken. The creature collapses to the ground, its lifeblood staining the dirt. He stands over the fallen villager, a grim end to a tragic fight. This monstrous arm, he realizes, is a power-up with some serious emotional baggage. A distant scream echoes as Roland examines the source of his new power. But he's not alone. A lone survivor stares at him from across the burning street. Roland turns, his expression unreadable, his cursed arm still glowing faintly. The villager's face twists in horror, unable to process what he's seeing. He recognizes the hero, but also the monstrous limb now attached to him. The man screams that Roland has become a monster, turning to flee for his life. Roland is stunned, realizing this is going to be a public relations nightmare. The villager doesn't wait for an explanation, sprinting away in pure terror. In his mind, the horrifying truth is confirmed. Their hero is the devil. He'd stumbled upon a scene of carnage, drawing the worst possible conclusion. The story shifts to a scene of utter devastation, a burning land where humans are nowhere to be found. A voice echoes through the flames, questioning if someone truly believed they would be spared. Meanwhile, in a tavern, rumors of Roland's return are spreading like wildfire. One man claims he saw Roland not just fighting monsters, but turning on the villagers. The story escalates, painting Roland as the butcher of his own village. And now, the official word is out. The kingdom is hunting the hero they once celebrated. A woman in the tavern laments the fall of a hero, now branded a monster. The public has made up its mind, because mob justice is always so reliable. A single sorrowful thought cuts through the noise, a memory of a lost brother. Our story finds Roland far from the whispers, in the desolate Dendron wasteland. He spent days in the wasteland, training to master his cursed new arm. But the arm has one major drawback. It absolutely refuses to hold his sword. A cruel twist of fate for the world's greatest swordsman. He's haunted by the memory of his own blade ending his previous life. He resolves to master this new power, knowing his hand-to-hand skills are lacking. But his solitary training is about to be interrupted by an unwelcome voice. A pink-haired warrior descends from above, aiming a powerful kick right at his head. Her attack connects with a brutal, sweeping strike. He blocks it effortlessly, because that new arm has some pretty great reflexes. He looks up and recognizes his attacker, the knight, Salana. Salana is stunned that he can still speak, convinced he's become a mindless beast. She powers up her gauntlets, declaring her intent to stop him here and now. Roland tries to reason with her, but she screams back, refusing to believe his lies. With a voice full of betrayal, she questions if he's really the brother she looked up to. She attacks, tears streaming down her face, yelling that he would never have abandoned her sister. Her mind flashes back to a somber day, to the origin of their makeshift family, a memory of a tiny, heartbroken Salana crying for the parents she'd just lost. The three orphans stand before two graves, their world shattered. Felicia embraces her, vowing to be the mother she no longer has. The young Salana then asks who will be their father, her hopeful gaze turning to Roland. The request catches the young Roland completely off guard. He pulls them close, offering to be their big brother instead. But looking at their faces, he changes his mind, vowing to be their father. The promise is enough to finally break through Salana's grief. She clings to him, accepting this new makeshift family. Salana recalls her genuine happiness, believing they would be together forever. But that happy memory now fuels the fury of her present-day assault. Their battle rages on, watched from the shadows by a monstrous figure. She hammers away at his defenses, her fists glowing with righteous anger. It's a tragic dance of brother against sister, a flurry of devastating blows. Salana unleashes a powerful twin palm strike, pouring all her grief into the attack. But Roland's cursed arm easily deflects the blow, the ground cracking from the force. His eyes are cold and steady, a stark contrast to the chaotic energy pulsing from his arm. She calls him a stubborn fool, believing that ending him is the only way to set him free. He desperately tries to explain, insisting that he's still himself despite his monstrous limb. But she cuts him off, her voice cracking as she asks the one question that matters. If he's not a monster, then where is Felicia, and what about the grave back home? Her grief and rage finally boil over, demanding to know why their world fell apart. Roland looks away, quietly asking if she witnessed the tragedy for herself. She refuses to listen, declaring that monsters lie and reminding him of the family he promised to protect. She vows to end his suffering, believing she's putting her brother to rest. Her gauntlets flare to life, charged with devastating, earth-shattering energy. She lunges forward, aiming to overwhelm him with a single, powerful blow. She screams at him not to move, to accept the end she's offering him. She slams the ground, unleashing her exploding rock fist technique. The entire wasteland erupts, the ground shattering under the force of her blow. Salana stands ready amidst the dust, her expression grim and determined. But Roland has already evaded, landing safely on a newly formed spire of rock. He realizes she's too broken by grief to listen to any explanation. He can't blame her. She lost her sister and now sees him as a monster. Family reunions are going to be awkward. He realizes her pain runs deeper than a simple misunderstanding. His mind flashes back to the grim sight of Felicia's lifeless form. He struggles with how to even begin explaining the horrifying truth. He knows he didn't kill her, but the truth is far more monstrous. But Salana's grief has already hardened into an unshakable conviction. He accepts that trying to reason with her right now is a lost cause. He decides the best course of action is to simply disappear. But their family drama is interrupted by an uninvited guest. Salana's rage is replaced by shock as she senses the new threat. The shadowy observer finally reveals itself, a hulking beast looming behind her. Salana's rage turns to shock as she senses the new presence behind her. Before she can even turn, the hulking beast strikes with blinding speed. She's sent flying, crashing into the canyon wall with bone-shattering force. Battered and broken, she can barely lift her head from the dust. The monster looms over her, raising its weapon for the final crushing blow. But a crimson blur intercepts the attack, stopping the beast in its tracks. Salana looks up in disbelief, her supposed enemy now her only protector. Roland's cursed arm has punched clean through the monster's chest. Talk about a change of heart. His eyes burn with a cold fury, a man who has nothing left to lose. He declares that they took his life, his love, and now his patience. Salana can only stare at the monstrous arm that just saved her life. He realizes the demons are now trying to take Salana from him as well. A cold resolve settles over him as he makes a silent, deadly promise. He channels all of his rage into the cursed limb, his eyes burning with vengeance, and with a single devastating blast, he vows to destroy them all. The ground is left a crater of blood and shattered rock, the monster utterly annihilated. He realizes that when he touched the beast, he absorbed its power into his own arm. He looks at the devastation, finally understanding the true potential of this cursed power. This power is nothing like the gentle soul it came from. It is a power of destruction, a power that only knows how to take. The battle is over, and now, by the fire's light, the truth finally comes out. Salana struggles to process the story, the Demon Lord's appearance a horrifying revelation. The pieces click into place, a terrible image of Felicia's transformation burning in her mind. The weight of this new reality crushes her, leaving her utterly speechless. Roland takes the blame, his voice heavy with the guilt of his failure to protect her. His expression is a mask of cold sorrow, the weight of his promise still haunting him. Tears stream down Salana's face as she finally understands the depth of his pain. She's overwhelmed by her own guilt, but Roland quickly absolves her of any blame. He insists that the failure to protect Felicia rests on his shoulders alone. But his grief quickly hardens into a burning rage, aimed at the one who started it all. He believes that without his sword, he no longer has a place in the world of men. He vows to hunt the demon lord down and end him with his bare hands. But Salana's grief gives way to a quiet, unshakable resolve. She declares that if he's going to fight, she's going with him. She places her hand on his, a silent promise of her loyalty. She reminds him of their bond, the family they forged in tragedy. She insists that this is her fight too, a burden they must share. Her words finally break through his wall of self-pity and grief. He realizes that he's not the only one who lost Felicia that day. And so, their shared grief becomes a shared mission of vengeance. And with that, Salana's grief hardens into steely resolve. She's ready for a new dawn, but Roland brings up a practical problem, finding their target. The demon lord is a ghost, appearing at random and leaving only ruin behind. But Roland remembers the one time he managed to get the big boss's attention. Killing General Maddago is what summoned him, so the plan is simple. Kill them all. Salana agrees, and it seems she already knows exactly where to start. She explains that Roland isn't the only one with a massive bounty on his head. The new target is a group known as the Seven Spirits of Maddago. Spooky. Apparently, a fiery phantom has taken up residence in Maddago's old castle. And if the rumors are true, that's where their quest for revenge will begin. Roland's expression hardens, his path now crystal clear. With a quiet finality, he agrees to their new mission. And so the two set off to hunt down Maddago's ghost. Their path takes them north, through the wastelands, and toward the fallen general's castle. Now a fugitive, Roland travels in disguise, sticking to the less traveled roads. Salana watches him, a silent concern in her eyes. He reflects on their past, a time when their adventures were much simpler. He recalls that for the past 2 years, his missions were either royal decrees or suicide runs. Even with her skill, he couldn't risk bringing her on such deadly assignments. But she insists she's grown stronger, confident they can face anything together. He admits that even at his peak, he was no match for the demon lord. But Salana insists that together, the three of them could have stood a chance. He remembers the angel's promise, a sliver of hope in the darkness. So she declares that until that day comes, they will fight as a trio. He can see she's putting on a brave face, trying to pull him from his despair. It reminds him of how Felicia comforted Salana when they were orphaned. He's struck by how much Salana has grown to resemble her older sister. Her strength gives him strength, and he agrees to her hopeful plan. Her smile is genuine now, their shared purpose reigniting her spirit. He admits he was lost in his failure, but seeing Salana has given him a reason to fight on. He makes a new vow, promising to protect Salana with this cursed power. They arrive at their destination, the dark, foreboding castle of General Maddago. Salana asks if anything has changed since he first fought the general here. Roland scans the familiar ruins, confirming that it's just as he left it. The place is an eerie, untouched monument to his previous victory. But one detail catches his eye. The fire on the throne still burns, meaning Maddago is alive. He warns Salana to be ready, convinced their target is lurking somewhere in the shadows. But a mysterious voice cuts through the silence, correcting his assumption. The two warriors spin around, ready for a fight as a new figure emerges. A young man introduces himself as Kronos, the castle's surprisingly chill caretaker. Kronos seems to know exactly who Roland is, questioning how he's even alive. He smirks, recalling the rumor that the demon lord himself had finished Roland off. Roland doesn't bother with a reply, launching a devastating punch with his cursed arm, but the caretaker dodges with impossible speed, complaining about the interruption. Salana follows up with her own attack, but Kronos seems completely unfazed. He effortlessly blocks her strike, his speed catching her completely off guard. The two realize this caretaker is far faster than General Maddago ever was. But Kronos isn't here for a fight. He seems far more interested in something else. His gaze falls on Roland's monstrous limb, correctly identifying its tragic origin. He bursts into laughter, declaring this juicy new info must be reported to the demon lord. Roland demands to know who this new enemy is and why Maddago is still alive. But Kronos just smirks, questioning why a demon would ever answer a human. He then offers to answer just one question, clearly enjoying his little power trip. He reveals that Maddago is on his way to Okuna to finish off the survivors. The news hits them like a physical blow, another attack on their already shattered home. Kronos taunts them, knowing they don't have time to waste on him now. He points out that he hasn't even lifted a finger, a true master of psychological warfare. Salana urges Roland to leave, knowing they're walking right into the demon's trap. Roland turns away, declaring he can't abandon anyone he has a chance to save. But he leaves Kronos with a cold promise. He will be back to settle this score. Kronos feigns terror, completely unimpressed by the hero's promise. He then reveals he has no intention of reporting this to the Demon Lord. After all, a story this interesting is far too good to spoil. Meanwhile, back in Okuna, the village is already engulfed in flames. A young boy screams in terror, held captive by a monstrous hand. General Maddago has returned, demanding to know the location of Roland's corpse. He monologues about the honor of his position under the Demon Lord's rule. But the memory of his previous defeat still haunts him. He cannot accept being the first executive to be bested by a mere human. And so he declares his intention to have a rematch, starting with the villagers. He declares his return from the depths of hell, vowing to win this time. But the terrified boy asks about Roland, recalling the rumor that he'd become a monster. The news seems to catch the resurrected general completely off guard. He tosses the boy aside, noting this story doesn't match the official report. The poor kid can only stare in absolute pants-wetting terror. The general looms over him, demanding a full debriefing on the situation. But his interrogation is cut short by a familiar, unwelcome voice. Roland and Salana have arrived, and Maddago seems genuinely surprised to see him. Roland throws the sentiment right back at him because fair is fair. Maddago just laughs, declaring this saves him the trouble of digging up a grave. Maddago roars, demanding a fight to the death once more. But Roland's expression is cold, telling him that's a fatal mistake. The general notes the obstacles standing in the way of their rematch. Salana refuses to be sidelined, declaring that this is her fight too. But Roland raises his cursed arm, stopping her before she can charge in. Maddago responds by summoning an army of flaming soldiers from the ground. He explains his simple plan. His new minions will burn the villagers alive. He then gives Salana a choice: save the villagers and leave Roland alone. She's horrified by his cruelty, calling him a monster for his twisted logic. Maddago clarifies his terms: an honorable duel for the village's safety, because honorable is definitely the word for it. Salana refuses to leave his side, determined to help her brother. But Roland gives her a direct order: protect the villagers while he handles Maddago. She trusts his confidence, remembering he's already won this fight once before. With a promise to return quickly, she sprints off to save the innocents. Maddago turns his attention back to Roland, ready to rewrite their history. He notices the monstrous arm, realizing things won't be quite the same this time. The general asks about the sword that defeated him, disappointed he can't shatter it. Roland has no time for talk, raising his cursed hand and daring him to attack. Maddago scoffs at the hero's predictable stoicism, calling him as dull as ever. With a roar, the resurrected general brings his weapon down to start the fight. Roland admits his confidence was just a front to reassure Salana. He knows he's weakened without his sword, while Maddago feels stronger than ever. The general's weapon descends, a clear sign the tables have completely turned. But even so, his resolve burns bright. He refuses to accept defeat. He meets the blow, treating his cursed arm as if it were his own blade. Instead of a direct clash, he deflects the force, using his swordsman's instincts. He twists away, evading the full brunt of the devastating attack. He realizes his instincts are still sharp. Turns out you can teach an old swordsman new tricks. But Maddago scoffs at his defense, unleashing a brutal counterattack. The blow connects, sending Roland flying helplessly through the air. He grits his teeth, realizing the reach of a sword and an arm are worlds apart. Maddago watches, noting that even in retreat, Roland managed to soften the blow. So the general decides to try a less subtle approach, gathering flames in his maw. Roland can only watch in alarm as the new attack builds with terrifying speed. Maddago unleashes his infernal roar, a devastating wave of pure destruction. The hero is completely engulfed, thrown back by the sheer force of the blast. He lands, battered, realizing these abyssal flames are far stronger than before. Roland knows that with this kind of firepower, the fight is definitely not in his favor. Maddago taunts him, asking if the monstrous arm is merely for show. But Roland's expression shifts, realizing a past assumption may have been a grave mistake. Roland's eyes narrow, declaring he's about to prove just what this arm can do. But Maddago isn't interested in a monologue, charging forward to end this. The general brings his weapon down and Roland knows a direct block is suicide. But as the blow descends, a grim realization dawns on him. Instead of deflecting, he catches the blade with his cursed arm, He decides there's no other choice but to unleash its true power. He activates the Arm of Usurpation, a power that takes rather than gives. Maddago cries out in shock, feeling his own strength being drained away. The cursed limb absorbs the general's abyssal flames, making them its own. And just like that, the hero has a brand new party trick, and Maddago is not a fan. He unleashes the stolen power, a devastating blast of crimson energy. Roland stands amidst the smoke, his gaze fixed firmly on his opponent. But Maddago seems unimpressed, noting the attack barely left a scratch. He admits the power theft was surprising, but not enough to be a real threat. The general laments this turn of events, calling Roland's new form grotesque. That word strikes a nerve, causing the cursed arm to pulse with dark energy. Roland repeats the insult, his voice dangerously low and filled with rage. He declares that Maddago has no right to mock her arm. The general is momentarily confused by the hero's strange choice of words. But then, the horrifying realization dawns and he erupts into laughter. Maddago connects the dots, realizing the arm belongs to Roland's monstrous lover. The taunt hits home and Roland is consumed by guilt for failing Felicia. Maddago pushes further, threatening to have Salana suffer the same terrible fate. But Roland's grief is overshadowed by a single burning thought. He needs more power. The general declares he won't lose again, preparing to finish this fight for good. He unleashes another infernal roar, a torrent of pure, destructive flame. But Roland stands his ground, determined to steal every last drop of that power. He grits his teeth, his cursed arm absorbing the full force of the blast. The resulting explosion tears through the already burning village. When the smoke clears, Maddago stands in the crater, completely unfazed. Well, that's anticlimactic. Maddago's smug grin suggests he's completely unharmed by the blast. But his confidence quickly turns to shock as he senses something is wrong. Roland declares that he's about to strip away every last bit of his power. By consuming the attack, his cursed arm is now imbued with abyssal flame. Maddago is genuinely surprised that Roland managed to steal his signature power. But he's noticed a critical flaw in the hero's desperate gambit. Roland couldn't absorb the full blast, and his arm is now shattered and smoking. Roland insists it's just a scratch, but Maddago isn't buying the tough guy act. The general charges forward, ready to silence him with another devastating blow. But Roland knows the truth. The damage he took was anything but light. His arm now burns with a mix of stolen fire and his own energy. He vows to return the attack with twice the destructive force. His fist connects, shattering the general's weapon into pieces. Maddago is blown back, completely stunned by the sudden turn of events. Roland explains he's using the flames as a thruster for his punch, so a rocket-powered fist. Got it. The general stares at the remains of his hammer, his confidence finally cracking. But he scoffs, telling Roland not to get cocky with borrowed power. He's about to demonstrate the difference between a spark and an inferno. He declares that Roland's stolen firepower is nothing compared to the source. With a roar, he unleashes his true power, becoming a living inferno. Maddago taunts him, declaring he's 1,000 years too early to master fire. He swings a massive blade of pure flame, which Roland meets with his cursed arm. The force of the blow is immense, pushing our hero to his absolute limit. Meanwhile, Salana has finished her cleanup duty and turns back to the main event. Her expression is grim, realizing her brother is in the fight of his life. A clash of red and blue energy erupts as Roland refuses to back down. Maddago calls him a persistent fool, but Roland holds the line against the inferno. The general just laughs, declaring his firepower is about to get even stronger. Roland grits his teeth, struggling to endure the overwhelming destructive force. He realizes that while his arm can take the heat, the rest of his body is about to be cooked. But Roland realizes this overwhelming firepower is exactly what he needs. In fact, this insane level of energy is his only path to victory. Maddago is stunned, realizing Roland is absorbing even more of his flames. So the general decides to double down, vowing to raise the heat even higher. He unleashes a cataclysmic blast, determined to overload the hero. The entire village is torn apart by the sheer force of the explosion. The ground shatters, the air crackling with raw, untamed energy. Both warriors roar, locked in a desperate final struggle for dominance. But it's Maddago who's sent flying, his own power turned against him. The general's form begins to crumble as Roland siphons away his strength. Roland reminds the general of his promise, his arm absorbing the inferno. He roars his intent, vowing to take every last drop of the general's power. Maddago can only stare in disbelief as his strength is siphoned away. The cursed arm becomes a vortex, pulling the abyssal flames into itself. The general can only whisper in defeat as his signature power is stolen. His body begins to crumble, turning to ash without its fiery core. The once mighty general fades into nothingness, his second chance wasted. As he disappears, Maddago feels a final, unfamiliar chill. Guess hell finally froze over. Roland stands over the remains of his foe. The battle finally won. He realizes he's not just borrowed the power, he's claimed its very core. He knows he can't replicate that final, overwhelming blast, but he now has a clear path forward, steal power from every general he finds. He asks Felicia's memory for strength, but Salana's voice cuts through the flames. She rushes to his side, asking if he's all right and what happened to the other demons. Salana confirms she handled the minions, leaving nothing but ash behind. But her focus is on his injuries, a concern he quickly brushes aside. She urges him to leave, knowing a subjugation squad will be drawn by the chaos. But his body finally gives out, his tough guy act crumbling as he stumbles in pain. She realizes his grief is driving him to fight with a reckless abandon he never had before. And in that moment, she vows to be the support that keeps him from breaking completely. Salana supports her brother, urging him to wait as they leave the ruins. But their escape is halted by the very villagers they just saved. The survivors stand amidst the flames, watching their hero turn his back. The same man who once fled in terror now calls out Roland's name. He asks if the rumors were wrong, if Roland truly isn't a monster. The villager admits he was afraid Roland had suffered the same terrible fate. They all look to him for an answer, a desperate hope in their eyes. But the question cuts deep, forcing Roland to question his own humanity. His mind flashes with memories of the carnage he's caused with his cursed arm. But before he can spiral, Salana grabs him, fiercely insisting that he is still himself. Salana's voice rings out, a fierce declaration that he is still her brother. She turns on the villagers, demanding to know if they didn't just see him save them all. She insists he's always been their hero, that he is and always will be Roland. Her words reach him, a flicker of warmth in the cold ruin of his life. The villager who once fled in terror now agrees, apologizing for ever doubting their hero. Memories flood back as they thank him, recalling the boy who always protected them. For a moment, amidst the ashes, their shattered community feels whole again. The man vows to clear his name, to tell the kingdom the rumors were all lies. But Roland stops him, explaining that with his monstrous arm, the truth won't matter. He knows the kingdom won't believe a rumor was wrong, they'll just assume everyone was corrupted. The villagers realize he's right, trying to clear his name would only endanger them all. The man argues that if Roland leaves, it will only confirm the kingdom's worst fears. But Roland's mind is made up, asking the villager to take care of things in his stead. With a new sense of purpose, the man accepts the heavy responsibility. Roland and Salana share a final somber look before turning to leave their home behind. The villager calls out, begging them to at least let him treat their wounds first. But they don't look back, their mission already pulling them away from the ashes. Salana quietly promises they'll return one day, with Felicia's memory beside them. But as they leave, a strange purple energy begins to seep from the shattered ground. It swirls around them as a voice declares a connection has been made. Well, this can't be good. Roland stares in shock, recognizing the voice from the castle. A ghostly figure of a young boy appears, telling them to halt. He explains this is just a projection, his real body is somewhere else. Roland confirms it, able to hear the voice but sense no physical presence. The boy casually notes that Maddago has been taken down for good. He dismisses the loss, saying the reanimated general was on his last legs anyway. So much for Employee of the Month. Roland demands to know who he is, realizing he's not just another demon grunt. The figure confirms this, stating he's here to make a formal introduction. He reveals his name is Kronos, Maddago's official replacement. He then apologizes for lying about being a simple caretaker back at the castle. He introduces himself as Kronos, a high necromancer and Maddago's official replacement. He taunts Roland, saying his revenge was pointless as the demon lord didn't care about a failure like Maddago. But he offers a consolation prize, presenting himself as a reward for all of Roland's hard work. Roland is not impressed, demanding to know what the demon truly wants. Kronos explains that demons live for one thing, the taste of human despair. And a man like Roland, so full of pain, is a delicacy he can't just kill outright. His gaze then falls on Salana, eager to see Roland's despair when he loses her too. But Salana fires back, vowing to make the little monster regret underestimating her. Kronos just laughs, finding her fighting spirit absolutely adorable. After all, he explains, you can't have true despair without a little bit of hope first. He challenges them to give it their all, to try and defeat him. and with a final taunting wave, his ghostly form dissipates. Salana watches the last wisp of energy fade, confirming he's gone. Roland connects the dots, realizing Kronos was the one who resurrected Maddago. He sees the grim reality. If generals are replaced, this war will never end. His conclusion is simple and brutal. They must wipe out every last demon. But Salana's mind is fixated on a single world-altering revelation. If resurrection is real, then maybe, just maybe, they can bring Felicia back. Roland is taken aback, questioning if that's really her takeaway from all this. Priorities, I guess. But a rare, genuine smile breaks through as he admits that's so like her. Salana agrees, declaring their new mission is set and it's time to move out. But first, she insists on patching up his wounds from the brutal fight. She then announces a new plan. She's going to train him. She points out that for all his skill with a blade, he's a complete novice at brawling, and she's more than happy to be the one to whip him into shape. The student becomes the master, I guess. The scene then shifts, pulling Roland into a familiar, recurring dream. A place of absolute emptiness, a void he knows all too well. He finds himself in a featureless, sterile white space. In the center of it all, he sits alone, consumed by his grief and failure. But then a familiar, radiant figure appears before him, glad to see him. He whispers her name, Felicia, the source of his pain and his power. But even in this dream, he can't reach her, a cruel limitation of his own mind. He wonders if she, too, feels trapped in this endless, empty white room. Her spectral form just offers a gentle, reassuring smile in response. He stands before her memory, a ghost haunted by another ghost. But something new appears in the void, the core of Maddago's stolen fire. He dismisses the flame, calling it a hot, useless trinket in this place. Felicia's eyes open, her smile unwavering, as if she knows something he doesn't. Her lips part, though no sound escapes, a silent message from beyond. And for the first time in a long time, a faint, bittersweet smile touches his own face. Roland awakens, the memory of that bittersweet smile still fresh in his mind. He finds himself by a campfire, Salana's voice welcoming him back to the world. She greets him with a warm smile and a bowl of soup. Apparently, vengeance can wait for breakfast. She announces that after they eat, his hand-to-hand training officially begins. He looks into the flames, speaking to a memory only he can see. He tells Felicia that he's finally ready to accept this new path without his sword. Salana begins the lesson, explaining that a swordsman's instincts need a serious overhaul. She gets straight to the point, identifying his biggest weakness, his footwork. Roland agrees, admitting his movements are still geared for a blade, not a fist. He recalls the fight with Maddago, how his poor positioning cost him openings. Salana decides it's time for a practical exam, asking him to show her what he's learned. Roland accepts the challenge, a confident look on his face as he prepares to move. He drops into a low stance, gathering his energy for the demonstration. With a powerful stomp, he launches himself forward from the ground. He unleashes a punch, his body a blur of controlled motion. He moves with such incredible speed that he startles the birds from the trees. His fist stops just inches from Salana's face, who can only stare in utter shock. The sheer force of his movement leaves her completely speechless. She demands to know why he moved like that. Apparently, he's a much faster learner than she thought. She wonders if he was secretly a martial arts master all along, but Roland quickly shuts that idea down. Roland explains he had plenty of time to practice while she was resting. The disturbed earth around them is a testament to his relentless overnight training. He knows that without constant effort, he'll never truly improve. He reflects that the world's greatest swordsman is now just a careless brawler. Salana grins, ready for the next phase of his training, the art of aggression. She demonstrates a rapid advance, telling him to forget his instinct to retreat. She knows he needs this. His grief has made him fight with no regard for his own life. She explains the importance of hit-and-run tactics to control the battlefield. But Roland suddenly shuts her down, refusing to learn that particular technique. He admits that her style is unique, a flurry of attacks he could never hope to replicate. He explains her hit-and-run style is only possible due to her exceptional speed. The compliment leaves her flustered, but he's already moved on to his own strategy. He asks about a nearby region of hellhounds, relentless beasts that hunt by scent. Once they catch a trail of blood, they will follow it to the ends of the earth. He recalls a subjugation request for them from back when he first fought Maddago. He cuts his hand, letting his blood drip onto a stone as Salana watches in confusion. He tells her not to worry, preparing to use the rock as bait for their new training partners. With a powerful throw, he launches the blood-soaked lure deep into the woods. The stone flies true, a silent invitation sent into the darkness. And from the shadows, a pair of crimson eyes snaps open, answering the call. The bait is taken, its crimson eye snapping open in the oppressive darkness. A blur of motion tears through the undergrowth, answering the bloody summons. The first hellhound bursts from the trees, a whirlwind of claws and teeth. It's a relentless predator, built for speed and a merciless, unending hunt. Salana's eyes widen in horror, finally understanding his insane training plan. But Roland stands firm as a whole pack of glowing eyes fills the shadows. He declares this is the ultimate practical exam, a one-man war against a horde. But as he prepares for battle, his mind drifts back to a much simpler time. He remembers a young Felicia, her face etched with worry in a dangerous place, and he recalls his own younger self, promising her that everything would be fine. He remembers promising a young Felicia she'd never be dragged into a hero's fight. But now he declares this is the true nature of combat, many against one. He knows hellhounds are tactical, hunting in coordinated packs with multiple leaders. If he can't defeat them, he knows hunting the demon lord is just a fantasy. The first predator answers the call, a nightmare of drooling fangs and hunger. It lunges forward, but Roland stands his ground, completely unfazed by the threat. He sidesteps the initial attack, his swordsman's instincts already kicking in. Salana cries out in warning as another beast closes in from behind him. She can see he's already surrounded, a pincer attack closing in fast. He's well aware of their cunning strategy. One distracts while the other goes for the kill. He recalls Salana's advice, a safe hit-and-run tactic to avoid being flanked. But he has no intention of playing it safe. That's not his style anymore. He decides to meet every attack head-on, putting his full power into each blow. The hellhound can only roar as the cursed arm descends upon it. His fist connects, a brutal display of overwhelming crimson force. He then steals the defeated beast's energy, fueling his next devastating strike. This allows him to maintain a constant, high-powered assault against the pack. He unleashes the stolen power, a cycle of destruction he calls plunder. So much for subtlety. He'll risk his own life with this reckless strategy, but it's a risk he's willing to take. With every strike, he plunders their strength, turning their numbers against them. He declares he can't retreat until his revenge is complete. Salana watches in awe, realizing he's already forging his own fighting style. He stands his ground as another beast charges, leaving deep gouges in the earth. But he's already looking past the fallen, anticipating the next wave. And just on cue, a bigger, stronger hellhound emerges from the shadows. Roland decides the training is over. It's time to wipe out the entire pack. His eyes narrow with a cold, unwavering focus. But a new voice cuts in, accusing him of using his men as bait. The pack's leader emerges, wreathed in its own flames, vowing he won't escape. The scene then cuts to two frightened children, lost and alone in the woods. The young girl looks up, lost and afraid, asking her companion for the way home. But she quickly realizes the boy leading her seems just as lost as she is. He tries to reassure her, claiming they've come far enough to be safe now. But his friendly facade shatters, revealing a demonic grin and glowing purple eyes. He tells her she's about to be killed by a hellhound and to blame that person for it. With a cheerful wave, the ghostly boy bids her farewell, his form dissipating. He vanishes into thin air, leaving the girl utterly horrified and confused. Now completely alone, she begs for him not to leave her in the oppressive darkness. Her panicked breaths echo through the woods as the reality of her situation sinks in. Her eyes widen in sheer terror as she senses she is no longer alone. The girl's terrified sobs echo through the trees, a desperate plea to escape her fate. But before the beast can strike, a crimson blur tears through the darkness. Roland appears in a flash, shielding the child with his own body. His cursed arm lashes out, a brutal counterattack against the predator. He holds her close, wondering what a child is doing in these haunted woods. The girl can only stare, her eyes fixed on his monstrous, inhuman arm. But Roland's resolve hardens. He knows this is his fault and he will protect her. He gently covers her eyes, shielding her from the violence to come. The pack closes in, their courage returning now that their target is protecting a child. So brave. A massive hellhound looms behind them, ready to strike at the first opening. He knows his plunder ability is temporary. If he stops attacking, the power fades. With the child to protect, he realizes he's trapped, unable to fight at full strength. But just in time, Salana crashes the party with a devastating kick. Roland can only watch in shock as his sister joins the fray. She apologizes for her timing, her immediate concern being the terrified child. The girl, still shaking, manages to whisper her name, Lily. Salana offers a reassuring thumbs up, glad the kid is still coherent enough to talk. With a new resolve, Roland entrusts Lily to Salana's protection. He turns to face the pack leader, who vows there will be no escape this time. Roland knows his footwork is still clumsy, but his plan is simple: just close the distance. He explains that if he can't close the distance, he'll just make his own path. He launches himself like a cannonball, a blur of motion tearing through the pack. Salana can only watch, stunned by his reckless yet effective new tactic. But the beasts are relentless, turning their attention to the more vulnerable targets. Roland now stands before the Alpha, completely surrounded by its furious pack. Guess they don't appreciate him skipping the line. Salana's first priority is the child, asking if she's been injured in the chaos. The girl confirms her name is Lily, her voice barely a whisper. Salana gently asks what she was doing so deep in these monster-infested woods. Lily explains that she was with a boy, but he suddenly vanished. She says he promised to take her home, but led her here and disappeared. Roland knows exactly who she means. Roland realizes Lily was lured here by a demon, and the threat isn't over. Salana asks the girl if she knows the way home, and Lily confirms she does. The young girl points them in the direction of her home, Carki village. Roland considers this new destination, another village he might endanger. Salana points out its remote location means he'll be safe from prying eyes. He decides he can't let her go alone, but asks her to keep his arm a secret. But the girl's reaction is not fear, but awe, calling his monstrous arm cool. She beams with admiration, thanking him for saving her life. Roland is completely flustered, realizing she watched the entire brutal fight. Salana just smiles, glad to see a flicker of his old self return. Roland looks at his monstrous arm, still processing the child's unexpected praise. A fleeting memory of Felicia's warm, encouraging smile flashes through his mind. He looks up, a hint of his old self returning as he agrees with his sister. They arrive at their destination, the quiet, remote settlement of Carki village. The streets are calm, filled mostly with older residents and young families. Roland notes the lack of young men, realizing he's less likely to be recognized here. Lily points to her home, excitedly calling out that she's brought guests. Her mother greets her with relief, her gaze shifting curiously to the two strangers. The girl proudly declares that her new friend saved her from a monster. The mother's concern turns to panic, but Lily insists she's completely unharmed. The mother holds her daughter, explaining the grave danger she was just in. Lily can only apologize, her head bowed in shame and regret. Her mother pulls her into a tight embrace, just relieved to have her back safely. Roland and Salana watch the tender moment from the doorway. The woman turns to them, her gratitude overflowing as she asks for their names. Salana introduces herself as a traveling martial artist, but hesitates for her brother. Roland, with a completely straight face, introduces himself as Laura. Smooth. The mother finds the name a bit odd, and Roland awkwardly apologizes for it. She quickly brushes it off, insisting on treating them to a meal as thanks. The mother asks for Lily's help, and the girl happily agrees, eager to assist her heroes. The grateful mother invites them inside, eager to repay their kindness. Salana can't help but tease him about his choice of alias. Apparently, Laura was the name she used when she pretended to be his little sister. Later, as they walk through the village, Roland notices something is deeply wrong. He suspects a demon is using this remote settlement as its personal hunting ground. He decides they'll stay and deal with it, knowing they need the practice for Kronos. Salana agrees, adding they must master his arm and fight every demon they find. Roland reaffirms their shared dream of world peace, a promise made with Felicia. Their conversation is interrupted by Lily, who wonders why they're still outside. Roland confirms they're on their way, stepping towards a temporary fragile peace. But as they settle in, an old man watches from afar, his expression grim and weary. Inside, the siblings share a rare, peaceful meal with Lily and her mother. Lily proudly asks how the soup is, though her vegetable cutting skills could use some work. Salana offers a polite compliment, as the mother apologizes for the humble meal. But they both insist it's delicious, grateful for the simple moment of warmth. The mother's smile fades as she explains her struggle since her husband's death. Roland's gaze sharpens, asking if her husband was another victim of the demons. She confirms it, revealing that demons have been nesting in ruins near the village for years. Her husband was one of their casualties, a man his own daughter can barely remember. Salana asks why they stay, but the mother's answer is simple. They have nowhere else to go. She explains the village chief once submitted a request, but they were pushed to the back of the line. Roland knows all too well how such pleas for help can get buried and forgotten. The mother accepts her fate, believing others have it worse and she shouldn't complain. But Roland cuts through her resignation, telling her that's no way to think. His words catch both Lily and her mother completely by surprise. He insists that someone else's suffering doesn't invalidate her own need for rescue. The mother is moved, accidentally calling him by his real name in her gratitude. He asks for the location of the ruins, offering to handle the problem himself. Lily jumps to his defense, nearly blurting out that her big brother is the only weapon he needs. She quickly catches herself as Salana smirks, enjoying the near revelation. "Close call, kid." Salana flashes a confident smile, assuring the mother they can handle the situation. Roland reflects that the world has grown too complacent with the existence of demons. He knows people shouldn't have to endure them like a storm, and for that reason... They arrive at the ruins, and Salana immediately confirms the presence of demons within. She points out the obvious danger of walking into an unknown, potentially trapped lair. Roland agrees, recalling the first rule of adventuring, never blindly enter enemy territory. But he has a plan for that, asking Salana to lend him some of her gunpowder. A quick reminder, Salana is a speed fighter who uses magic tools to enhance her power. One of those tools is her explosive gloves, and Roland now holds a vial of their key ingredient. He combines the stolen flames of Maddago with his cursed arm, preparing to flush them out. He decides to use this new volatile combination of powers. He unleashes a massive arc of explosive energy toward the ruins. The gunpowder ignites, turning his stolen flames into a devastating bomb. The resulting explosion tears through the ancient structure, a fiery eviction notice. He declares that the best way to deal with a nest is total annihilation. Salana worries about destroying history, but Roland's priority is the present. With the ruins cleared, he announces their real work is about to begin. But the ground beneath them begins to tremble and crack apart. A massive golem formed from the ruins themselves rises to meet them. Salana wonders if they accidentally woke it up. Well, that's one way to get a landlord's attention. Salana stares up at the colossal stone guardian, confirming it's a golem. But from within the rubble, a monocled demon realizes his home wasn't destroyed by accident. He puts the pieces together, his expression darkening with irritation. The realization sends him into a rage, furious that someone dared to attack him. The golem speaks with his voice, confused as to who could be resisting his rule. Roland knows exactly who he's facing, the demon who killed Lily's father. He recalls that demons are master manipulators, living only to create despair. Their minions are mindless beasts driven by a simple, insatiable bloodlust. But a golem is different. It's just a puppet of earth and magic, not a living thing. And that puppet now brings its colossal fist down to crush our hero. Roland meets the stone fist head-on, his cursed arm taking the full impact. He strains against the immense pressure, the sheer force of the golem overwhelming. But he realizes his arm can't absorb power from something that isn't alive. It's the perfect counter to his ability, an enemy with no life force to steal. His greatest weapon is useless against this mindless puppet of stone and magic. He grits his teeth, realizing this fight just got a whole lot harder. The demon scoffs from the sidelines, annoyed that his prey is actually fighting back. But he's not alone. Salana charges in, scaling the golem's massive arm. She leaps toward the demon, aiming a devastating kick right at his head. He seems to enjoy his personal space. He dodges effortlessly, deciding to eliminate the annoying martial artist first. The demon declares he's going to end this little pest problem right here. He commands the golem from its shoulder, sending it on a destructive rampage. Roland admits the demon is surprisingly capable for a non-elite. With a cry, the demon orders his stone soldiers to attack. Massive stone spikes erupt from the ground, forcing the siblings to stay on their toes. The earth itself becomes a weapon, a forest of jagged stone rising to impale them. And as if one giant golem wasn't enough, an army of smaller ones joins the party. Roland tells Salana he's counting on her, recognizing the familiar boss and minions setup. She warns him that a head-on fight with the main golem is suicide. But the demon has no intention of playing fair, ordering his puppet to crush them both. The colossal stone fist descends, aiming to turn Roland into a pancake. But he meets the attack head-on, his cursed arm crackling with power. The impact shatters the earth, a testament to the golem's raw strength. Roland is driven back, struggling to hold against the overwhelming weight. And just as he's pinned, a smaller golem moves in for a cheap shot from behind. But Salana is there to intercept, shattering the stone minion with a single kick. Roland realizes he can't break the fist without the stolen energy he lacks. his sister calls out, seeing him struggle as more minions close in on her. She yells at him to remember his training, to use his footwork and put his weight into it. Guess the lesson isn't over yet. Taking her words to heart, he plants his feet ready to unleash his full power. He stomps down, channeling all his power from the ground up. It's not about raw strength, but focusing his entire body into a single point of impact. With a mighty uppercut, he sends the colossal stone fist flying. He knows that with this much force, even a golem has to feel the pain. Salana can only watch in disbelief as her brother shatters the stone appendage, but the golem simply stumbles back as a new arm begins to sprout from the stump. The demon explains that his puppet has simply taken on a more humanoid form. He introduces himself with a dramatic flourish. Pace, the puppet master. Guess every villain needs a title card. The newly formed fist comes crashing down, aiming to flatten our hero for good. Roland is pinned against the cliffside, struggling to hold back the immense weight. But his punch only meets regenerating stone, the golem's fist reforming around his own. Roland realizes with dawning horror the speed of its regeneration. Its arms morph into a drill and a spiked mace, an upgrade he was not hoping for. He knows the only way to stop a golem is to destroy its core, but this one likely has several. His new mission is simple: find and shatter every last one of them. But Salana calls out from the sidelines, telling him it's time to switch places. He starts to protest, knowing she can't take the golem's full force alone. But she cuts him off, pointing out that her speed makes her perfect for a high-stakes game of hide-and-seek. She proves her point immediately, weaving through the stone army with impossible agility. The demon Pace can only watch in annoyance. His puppet show officially crashed. She becomes a pink-haired blur, a flash of motion against the stone giant. The golem's fist comes crashing down, but she's already under it, dodging the blow. The shockwave sends her tumbling through the air amidst a shower of shattered rock. But even in freefall, her eyes are locked on the target, analyzing its every move. She admits the golem is tough, but uses its own body as a springboard. With each strike, she listens, sensing the location of a core by the sound. So percussion is her secret weapon. She knows she can't let Roland face this threat alone, not anymore. With Felicia gone, she vows to be the one who supports him, spotting the cores. She yells out their locations, telling him to switch as she dodges a forest of spikes. Pace can only watch in fury, his perfect puppet show falling apart. Roland praises his sister, putting her lesson into immediate practice. He stomps down, launching himself with explosive, ground-shattering force. He soars through the air, a human cannonball aimed at the golem's chest. His body becomes a blur, a crimson missile locked on its target. His cursed arm glows, ready to deliver the final decisive blow. His fist smashes into the stone giant, a direct hit on the core's location. He tears through the stone, finding himself inside the golem's chest. And there it is, the glowing blue core, the heart of the puppet. Pace can only scream in frustration as his masterpiece is torn apart. Looks like the show's over. The golem's form begins to crumble, its magical energy fading away. Pace screams in frustration, ordering his puppet to finally crush the hero. Roland is trapped, his cursed arm the only thing between him and certain death. But he refuses to yield, channeling all his strength into a single point. His power surges, cracking the very stone that seeks to crush him. With a final, desperate push, he prepares to shatter his way to freedom. The golem's body erupts from within, as Roland's attack finds its mark. Pace realizes with only one core left, he can no longer maintain the golem's massive form. So he decides to change tactics, transforming his puppet into a new shape. The final glowing core becomes visible, the last source of the golem's power. The golem reforms into a smaller, more concentrated shape. Guess size doesn't matter after all. The siblings brace themselves as the golem takes on its new form. Pace proudly announces his puppet's new flight mode. Because why not? With his new ride, the demon makes a tactical retreat at full speed. He decides there's no reason to stick around and fight these uninvited guests. Customer service is clearly not his strong suit. After all, his entire career is built on tormenting the weak, not fighting heroes. But as he flees, he realizes the pink-haired brat is hot on his tail. He scoffs, confident that her attacks are too weak to ever break his final core. But Salana grins, revealing she's been saving a trump card for just this occasion. She plans to overload her gloves with all her remaining magic and gunpowder. It's a one-shot ultimate attack, and she's aiming it right at his face. Pace can only watch in horror as the overloaded glove detonates. A massive explosion of light and force tears through the sky. The golem's final form is shattered into 1,000 pieces. The demon's scaly hand slams into the dirt, his flight cut short. He lies broken on the ground, his puppet show officially over. His arrogance evaporates, replaced by a pathetic plea for his life. But Roland has a question, asking if he was the one who lured Lily into the forest. The demon frantically denies it, explaining his own twisted methods are different. He prefers to kill the men first, forcing children to watch their protectors fall. He insists they have the wrong guy, begging for mercy with a sickening grin. Roland's disgust turns to calculation. If this demon is telling the truth, then the one who lured Lily into the woods must have been Kronos. But his thoughts are cut short as Pace gathers a final surge of desperate power. His hand transforms into a stone claw, digging into the earth for one last attack. The demon lunges forward, hoping to catch the hero completely off guard. But Roland is ready, meeting the pathetic strike with his own cursed fist. The blow sends the puppet master flying, his final act ending in utter failure. So much for the encore. All that remains of the demon is a shattered monocle amidst the rubble. Roland notes that this low-level demon leaves no lingering power for him to steal. Salana calls out, and with the threat neutralized, they agree to head back to the village. Back at the village, Roland explains they defeated the demon, but not the one who targeted Lily. The mother apologizes for the confusion, grateful that her husband was at least avenged. Roland realizes the demon was likely targeting them, and they must leave to keep the village safe. The mother agrees, knowing that strangers will only bring unease to their quiet community. But Lily doesn't understand, questioning why her heroes have to leave so soon. Her mother gently cuts her off, reminding her of her chores before sunset. She urges her daughter to go on ahead, promising to join her shortly. The young girl reluctantly agrees, her disappointment clear on her face. The mother then clarifies they are welcome to stay, but she won't stop them if they must go. She offers them what little food they have for their journey, a simple act of profound gratitude. The mother offers a warm farewell, asking them to visit again someday. Roland quietly agrees, but her sad smile tells a different story. He clenches his fist, realizing that even victory couldn't erase the village's pain. Salana sets their next course, a town to resupply, collect their bounty, and gather intel. Roland considers the nearest major settlement on their path. Their destination is Altred, the largest and busiest trade city in the kingdom. Meanwhile, in a lavish room far away, a mysterious figure relaxes. He holds a wanted poster, the face on it hauntingly familiar, Roland. The man smiles, a hunter who seems to have found his next target. Well, this can't be good. Back with our heroes, Salana notes Altred's guild will pay their bounty on the spot. But Roland immediately shoots down the idea, knowing it's too dangerous for a wanted man. He's been to Altred countless times. Someone at the guild is bound to recognize his face. And if a fight breaks out, protecting innocent bystanders would be nearly impossible. Salana brushes off his worries, reminding him how easily such requests get buried. Though she admits his monstrous transformation was pretty big news, second-guessing herself. But practicality wins out. They're out of money, supplies, and most importantly, gunpowder. She insists that Altred is the only place large enough to get everything they need. She leans in, her point made, leaving Roland with little room to argue. A classic sibling power move. He realizes she's not just thinking about supplies, she's trying to keep him connected to the world. He finally agrees, but on one condition, he's not setting foot inside the guild himself. And so with their destination set, the siblings head out. They arrive in Altred, the largest commercial city in the kingdom. It's a hub of trade, where everything from food to weapons flows freely. Magical items and other rare goods are shipped out to the rest of the world. And where there is money, there are always people. Protected by adventurers and knights, the city thrives even in an age of demons. But Roland knows this peace is fragile. One attack from the demon lord would shatter it all. He pulls his hood low, noting how lively the city remains despite the danger. Salana agrees, confident they can blend in with the bustling crowds. But she reminds him of their first priority. They're broke and they need cash. Salana splits off to handle the guild report, leaving Roland to find them a room. He stands alone amidst the city's lively atmosphere, a shadow in the sun. But the peace is shattered by a sudden commotion just down the street. A man is sent sprawling to the ground, his wares crashing around him. A scarred adventurer grabs a young merchant, blaming him for selling faulty gunpowder. The terrified merchant insists it's a case of mistaken identity, pleading his innocence. But the adventurer isn't listening, demanding the merchant prove he's not the seller. The merchant offers to check the product for his shop's mark, a reasonable request. The thug claims he's already used it, and Roland realizes bustling is a polite word for bloodthirsty. He sees the city for what it is, a place crawling with predators and opportunists. He knows that in a city this large, people are too busy surviving to help others. A nearby citizen confirms his thoughts, noting the constant, underlying fear of demons. But Roland can't just watch, stepping in to stop the adventurer's assault. The thug is enraged, turning his aggression on the hooded stranger who dared to interfere. Roland calmly points out the obvious. The man has no proof he bought anything here. The adventurer struggles, shocked by the suffocating pressure of Roland's grip. He shoves the merchant away, offering one last empty threat before backing down. The bully storms off, leaving the merchant confused and Roland completely unfazed. The young man turns to his savior, his face a picture of pure, unadulterated gratitude. He offers a reward that's almost too perfect, a free bag of gunpowder. Well, that was easy. Roland turns down the reward, asking the man to instead give it to a female fighter who might stop by. The merchant is moved by his nobility, though Roland knows he just doesn't know which gunpowder Salana uses. With a promise from the grateful merchant, Roland turns and disappears back into the crowd. Now, with that little detour over, he gets back to the task at hand, finding an inn. He walks through the city's grand architecture, a hooded shadow among the oblivious elite. He ascends the massive stone steps, a solitary figure moving against the city's current. He continues his search along the waterfront, trying to remain as inconspicuous as possible. He reflects that he wasn't trying to stand out, but some things just can't be helped. And it seems his attempt to go unnoticed has failed, as he senses a powerful presence nearby. A blonde-haired man wreathed in blue energy appears, calling out a name, Charles. The man acknowledges that Roland sensed his presence, his perception as sharp as ever. But he calls him by a different name, one from a past Roland tried to forget. Charles. The name triggers a memory, a flashback to his life before the cursed arm. Back when his days were filled with the simple clarity of slaying monsters, he moved like a whirlwind of steel, a hero in his prime. His focus was absolute, his purpose clear in the heat of battle. He identifies the leader of the undead horde, ready to end the fight. But another memory surfaces, one of a powerful ally wreathed in ice. A colossal ice elemental rises at his command, a display of overwhelming power. And with a single crushing blow, it obliterates the skeleton boss. Guess he had backup. The elemental's fist crashes down, shattering the undead leader with ease. Roland can only watch as the remnants of the beast fade into dust. And there stands his ally, a master of ice magic, completely unfazed. This is Charles Glass, and his first concern is for his comrade's safety. The remaining undead could only stare, their leader gone in a single blow. But Charles insists on checking for injuries, much to Roland's embarrassment. Charles was the heir to a prestigious family of mages, a true nobleman. But he was more than his title. He was a leader who cared for his men. He was one of Roland's most trusted partners, earning him an invitation home. An offer Charles accepts with a smile, honored by the friendly gesture. The memory takes him back to Okuna village, to the home he once shared. He remembers walking through the door, announcing his return to Felicia, and her warm smile as she welcomed him back to the place they all called home. A younger Salana peeks around the corner, excited to see their guest, Sir Charles. Charles greets the young girl, the two of them clearly old acquaintances. He then turns to Felicia, who introduces herself, a bit flustered by the visitor. Charles gives his full title, revealing he's the heir to the powerful House Glass. The revelation leaves Felicia completely speechless. She's in the presence of a high noble. She immediately worries about their humble home, but Charles is the picture of grace. Salana reassures her, explaining that Charles isn't your typical stuck-up aristocrat. Charles insists that on the battlefield, noble blood means nothing. Trust is all that matters. Felicia is moved by his words, finding his perspective truly wonderful. But Salana can't resist a jab, noting that he still looks every bit the sparkling aristocrat. Roland formally introduces his dear friend, hoping Felicia will welcome him. The two finally meet, with Charles admitting he's wanted to meet her for a long time. The memory shifts to that night, their small home glowing warmly against the darkness. The four of them gathered around the table for a rare, peaceful meal together. Roland remembers helping with the food, while Charles, ever the gentleman, provided the wine. For a moment, they were just a family, the war outside fading into the background. Charles compliments Roland on his wonderful family, and our hero can only agree. He admits that saving the world is just an excuse, he only wants to protect this. Charles calls it a beautiful wish, offering his help to preserve that fragile peace. Roland accepts his friend's vow with a rare, genuine smile. They seal their promise, two brothers in arms fighting for the same future. But that warm memory fades, leaving only the cold reality of his cursed arm. Charles's voice cuts through the silence, reminding Roland of the bounty on his head. His eyes glow with power as he recalls his shock at hearing his friend had become a monster. He declares it his duty to end Roland's suffering before he can cause more harm. So much for friendship. But even as he prepares to strike, he senses there's more to this story. Roland is taken aback, wondering if his old friend will truly listen to a monster's tale. Charles hopes his friend is still sane, boasting he's strong enough to paralyze him from a distance. Roland seems almost relieved, admitting his friend is as dependable as ever. And so, Roland lays out the entire tragic story for his old comrade. He tells him of Okuna Village, of Felicia's fate, and his new path with Salana. Charles is stunned into silence, blaming himself for what happened to Felicia. But Roland's eyes burn with hatred, vowing to make the Demon King pay for everything. Charles cuts through his anger, asking if this is what Felicia would have wanted. He asks Roland to imagine how she would feel, seeing him consumed by vengeance. The question hits home, and Roland admits he'll never truly know her final thoughts. But he turns away, declaring this is his chosen path because there's nothing else left. Charles relents, realizing he can't change his friend's mind. Roland turns to leave, apologizing but promising they will meet again. Charles watches him go, agreeing that their reunion is inevitable. But as Roland disappears, a sinister shadow falls over the nobleman. Charles senses the new presence, his expression hardening. The monstrous shadow is cast by a surprisingly small pair of shoes. A young boy with a fanged grin offers a polite, unsettling greeting. It's the same demon who lured Lily, and he seems delighted to be here. So much for a quiet afternoon. The boy identifies Charles by his full title, clearly knowing who he's facing. With a simple gesture, he leads the powerful mage away, blue energy flaring around Charles. Charles's eyes glow with power, challenging the demon to make its move. The scene shifts to the quiet rooftops of Altred as night falls. Later, Salana is thrilled with the inn Roland found, especially its modern amenities. She thanks him for handling the arrangements, clearly in high spirits. She asks about his day, but Roland cuts straight to the point. He ran into Charles. Salana is stunned, but Roland explains he told his old friend everything. She realizes Charles let him go, a testament to their old bond. Roland then asks about her trip to the guild, changing the subject. She proudly presents a huge bag of gunpowder, her mission a clear success. She mentions a special discount for female fighters, and Roland plays along. Guess his good deed paid off after all. Roland asks if she gathered any intel, but Salana says the guild board was quiet. He presses for news on Kronos or the Demon Lord, but she has nothing to report. She tries to spin it positively, and Roland agrees that silence is a good thing for now. He knows their paths will cross eventually. After all, Kronos is hunting him specifically. Until that day comes, his plan is simple. Keep killing demons and stealing their power. His cold resolve startles her for a moment, but she quickly agrees to the plan. With their mission set, she pulls out a map and suggests their next route. Her plan involves taking on trolls, nagas, and a black-armored demon from a bounty poster, a regular monster-slaying road trip. The route also conveniently passes by Carki village, where they can visit Lily and her mother. With their next steps decided, Salana celebrates, ready for the journey ahead. Salana flops onto the bed, thrilled to finally get a proper night's sleep. Roland watches her with a rare, peaceful smile, glad to see her happy. But later that night, he lies awake, his mind clearly still racing. He closes his eyes, trying to force the troubled thoughts away. But he's not alone. Salana stands over him in the quiet darkness. Her gaze falls on his cursed arm, a silent question on her mind. She wonders if she's doing enough to support him, the way Felicia once did. The scene shifts, a question hanging in the air. An adventurer? A young woman with a broom asks why someone would choose such a dangerous life. It's a memory of a younger Salana, teasing a clumsy companion on their journey. Guess some things never change. She admits she's always relied on them, and now wants to be an adventurer just like him. Felicia listens to the young girl's declaration with a knowing, gentle expression. She doesn't argue, simply telling Salana to follow the path she has chosen for herself. But she asks one thing, that Salana stay by Roland's side and support him in his fight. Salana's gaze is filled with a new, quiet determination. She promises to take Felicia's place, to be the one he can come home to for rest. The two of them seal their pact, a promise made between sisters. a vow to support each other as a family, through thick and thin. The memory gives way to the harsh reality of Roland's life since that day, an endless battle. And now, with Felicia gone, Salana reaffirms her promise to be his sanctuary. She knows that if his quest for revenge finally consumes him, it will be because she failed to take her sister's place by his side. But the next morning, she greets him with a cheerful shout, her energy boundless. Roland asks if she slept well, a rare moment of quiet normalcy between them. She gives a beaming thumbs up, confirming she slept like a rock. And with their supplies restocked, the siblings depart from the city of Altred. Their journey is a blur of battle, cutting down every demon in their path. They make their way back towards Carki village, a promise they intend to keep. Salana stretches, confident they're making good time after clearing the road. But Roland suddenly stops her, his senses telling him something is terribly wrong. He recognizes a specific foul scent in the air, realizing a corpse garden is nearby. Salana asks for clarification, and he explains it's a plant monster that uses victims as fertilizer. Charming. Since it wasn't on the guild boards, it must be a new arrival. They agree to take it out. Without another word, they move towards the source of the threat. The siblings race through the darkening woods, closing in on their target. They arrive in a clearing filled with glowing flora and twisting dark vines. Salana notes the eerie beauty of the place, a mix of wonder and dread. Roland agrees, noting that it's fine as long as it's empty, but it isn't. A vine whips out from the shadows, but Roland shatters it with a single punch. Salana can only watch as the forest itself seems to come alive with hostile intent. They look up to see the grim truth of the corpse garden, victims hanging lifelessly from the trees. But Salana's horror turns to disbelief as she recognizes one of the figures. It's Lily's mother, her body ensnared by the very vines that feed this place. Roland whips around, sensing the true source of the evil that surrounds them. A massive, beautiful flower rises from the darkness, its petals slowly unfurling. But its center is a nightmare, a maw of teeth and writhing tentacles. So much for a pretty flower. Roland knows they have to fight for their own lives first, unwrapping his cursed arm. The plant monster strikes, its thorny vines lashing out to claim new victims. But Roland meets the attack, his monstrous hand catching the vines midair. He holds firm against the creature's power, his own energy surging in response. His cursed arm flares with crimson energy, ready to fight back. He unleashes the arm of plunder, shattering the vines with stolen power. But the main flower and its countless offshoots continue their relentless assault. The siblings are surrounded, a forest of hostile flora closing in on them. Salana is overwhelmed by the numbers, but Roland explains it's all a single entity. Knowing that doesn't make the immediate threat any less terrifying. One of the flowers spits a glob of viscous purple liquid right at her. Salana freezes, unable to react as the deadly projectile closes in. But Roland is there, catching the poisonous liquid with his cursed hand. He absorbs the poison, declaring he's about to return it to sender. This guy's recycling program is intense. Roland channels the absorbed poison, his cursed arm glowing with malevolent energy. He unleashes the toxic liquid in a massive wave, sending it right back at its source. But as he lands, he sees the poison simply dripping off the creature's petals. It seems the monster is immune to its own venom. Well, that's just poor planning on his part. But Roland has another trick up his sleeve, summoning the stolen flames of Maddago. He decides that if poison won't work, he'll just have to burn this garden to the ground. He slams his hand down, unleashing a torrent of fire that incinerates the encroaching vines. The flames spread instantly, turning the beautiful flora into nothing but ash. Salana realizes that if the entire forest is one being, the fire will travel through its roots. And just as she predicts, the inferno races up the main stalk, climbing towards the heart of the beast. The flower's core glows, unleashing a volley of explosive seeds. Roland stands his ground as the glowing projectiles rain down on him. He realizes the creature is firing its own seeds as a last-ditch defense. But Roland is completely unfazed by the desperate counterattack. He declares he won't be stopped, unleashing his full power in a torrent of flame. The entire corpse garden is consumed by the inferno, a funeral pyre for its victims. But as the flames die down, he sees Salana kneeling over one of the bodies. He calls out to her, realizing she's trying to help Lily's mother. But it's too late. Salana confirms the woman has been dead for some time. The weight of their failure hits her, and she can only ask why this keeps happening. Roland stands over her, his own mind racing with the same question. But Salana calls out, having found something clutched in the woman's hand. She unfolds the crumpled paper, revealing a letter that changes everything. It's a note luring the mother here with a promise of information about Lily's safety, and it's signed with his name, a chilling realization that he's been framed. Salana grabs him, demanding answers and fearing for the young girl's life. He clenches his fist, promising that whoever did this will not be forgiven. With his face hidden, he tells her they need to get to Carki village immediately. They race back towards the village, a sense of dread hanging over them. The village seems untouched, but they know the real danger lies at Lily's home. But as they arrive, Roland senses a chilling shift in the village's atmosphere. The village chief appears, his face contorted with rage as he screams at them. He rushes forward, closing the distance with clear, hostile intent. Backed by armed villagers, he accuses Roland of being a demon's pawn. Guess the welcome wagon is out for repairs. Salana tries to intervene, insisting there must be some kind of misunderstanding. But the chief cuts her off, demanding that Roland show them his right arm. Roland freezes, shocked that the old man somehow knows his darkest secret. His silence is all the proof the terrified villagers need to confirm their fears. Roland tries to bargain, promising to leave if they can just see that Lily is safe. But the chief only twists his words, convinced he's brainwashed the poor girl. The chief screams that Lily is gone, unable to keep a child in that state in their village. Roland's fear turns to fury, demanding to know what the villagers have done with her.